We are live. We are live. Finally, I was just, well, welcome. Welcome to you all, beloved, blessed, angelic followers of Stewart Pearce and the Divine Cosmic Tribe. It is beautiful to be here with you. And finally, Stewart, because we did try to do this, was it 2
Can
weeks
you see me now?
We can see you now.
Oh, right, good. So
we were just talking. We've got people watching, which is great. What I would love the people who are watching this live to do, if you can see us and if you can hear us okay, could you just send us some thumbs up, please? Because that will help us to okay, brilliant. Yes, they can. We had some, it's interesting because and we're going to be talking a bit about this, as two highly empathic, highly energy sensitive people who have been really called into stepping into our energetic mastery in this lifetime. We haven't half blown the energies and the frequencies, Stewart, when we've been trying to do this interview in the past. So welcome to Ascension Talk with Ariella. It is so amazing to have you back on the show. You know, I always love connecting with you, Stewart. And I know that our audience have been really excited. Many of them are watching us now on this interview. Thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning back in and for being in divine flow with us while the energies settle and we get back into alignment. And I can't wait to share Stewart with you so that he can share his wisdom, and we're just going to flow with this and see where the energy takes us. Very, very quick intro, and then I'm going to hand you over to Stewart so you can hear his magnificent voice. I always say Stewart has got one of the, if not the best voice I've ever heard in my life. And of course, it's not the first time that I am sharing Stewart's incredible energy with my audience. I have interviewed Stewart before on one of my multidimensional summits, and it was an incredible response that we received from the viewers. So many of you wrote in and I think just really appreciated Stewart's energy and the wisdom that was shared. There were some orbs, I remember, that suddenly appeared behind me. So it's always super magical whenever Ariella and Stewart seem to get together. So let's see what magic we can cook up today. Welcome back to the show, Stewart.
Bless you. It's good to be here. It's good to be here because the quality of vibration that you're offering all of us in your warm-hearted, immensely wise approach is a true evocation of how we see the interface with the divine feminine at this time. So it's a great honor, as always, to meet this. You know, there are a number of extraordinary women who are being awoken as you are at this time, and you hold that priestesshood vibration very extraordinary within your body for one so young. So I say thank you for inviting me. It's a great joy. It's a great joy.
Thank you so much. I receive. Thank you. Well, amongst other things, and we are in flow today, but I have been tuning into the Avatar Ascension Community where we are broadcasting live now. And I've seen a few people putting similar comments, so I've seen the pattern there. And what's really being called for today and requested by the audience, and by the way, if you're watching this on replay, then Ascension Talk with Ariella is streamed live on my Facebook group, which is a free Facebook group. It's called Avatar Ascension Community, on the first 3 Thursdays of each month. So you need to be in there if you want to join us live and to be able to ask your questions live. And for those of you who are watching now, please do type any questions that you have below, and we will look at those and I will share them with Stewart to answer those. But the question which has been coming up is people are so curious to get to know your lineage even more, Stewart. They're really fascinated by your energy type, your lineage, your cosmic connections. And I would love it if you wouldn't mind sharing with our viewers what you have discovered about yourself on your path, because I think it's so inspiring, and it's helps us all to connect these different multidimensional beings that we all are. And I think it's lovely when people hear people speaking their truth in public like this. Can we start there?
Sure. Well, as you were speaking, I was just composing a way of being able to approach the question. And I feel that the direct answer is that the more awareness I develop through the vibration of humility and honesty, the more I get out of the way, in other words, the more I realize that I'm a crystalline presence of a being that I was in association with, or perhaps was in human form, in Atlantis. And the work that we did through sound and light enabled the crystals within my body to refract light through a series of different vectors that are cosmological vectors. The way that those vectors are rationalized or brought into the humanity of as being an earth being are through the lineages of certain ancient civilizations. So that's what I mean by the crystals refracting light. Each of the civilizations or the spiritual lineages, the wisdom keepers have addressed themselves to me. When the student is ready, the masters come. And what I've always done is to have this insatiable curiosity of just turning up and as an indigo saying, I'm here. And then something happens, something happens as I walk through the desert, something happens as I meditate, something happens as I walk into a temple in Egypt, something happens as I walk into Native America. So where it really all started for me was an awakening that I had within Native America. And it was in the late 60s. And I wasn't stoned because in the 60s, we were really engaged in the most beautiful, pure marijuana that was around. I haven't touched drugs for years and years and years and years, but then we were using mind-altering substances, and particular marijuana. But I was in the state of Maine in the United States, and I was with friends who said, we're going on a hike. And being a good British boy, I hadn't really heard about these hikes, but the Americans really go to town when they're going on a hike. And so we hiked up Mount Caribou, which is a very ancient granite form in northern Maine. And it was summertime, and it was a very, very beautiful summer's day. And when we got to the top, it's not that we were exhausted, but what happened was that we all spaced out, and some of us lay down to soak up the rays of solar energy. And I went somewhere. I disappeared. I went into deep alpha, deep theta. And then when I came round and time was suspended, my chums had gone somewhere. I don't know where. They'd gone to smoke a joint, to smoke a cigarette, because we all smoked cigarettes and things then. Whatever they were doing, looking at a view, but I was completely alone. And as I sat up, I had bare-chested myself, so I'd taken my t-shirt off. A wind passed over me, and in the wind I heard, yo, 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 and I burst into floods of tears because I realized that my ancestors, the Native American ancestors, were calling me. And after that moment, I had a series of what we today call downloads, where images came to me through dreams, through meditation, because I was compelled to meditation. I'd awoken much earlier, because I suppose I was about 23, 24 or something when this all happened. And I'd awoken about 10 years earlier to the regime of devotion and dedication and discipline. In other words, I awoke to my priest, the priest within me. So that was one of the major awakenings. But if I could go on and on and on, and I'm not going to. But I suppose the next major awakening was within the Middle East, where I discovered Judaism and Zoroastrianism was very, very powerful. So I was in Iran, and then I was in Israel, and literally wisdom keepers walked out of the ether in human form and claimed me. So I worked with them for a period of time.
Wow.
And then what happened? I suppose if I scoop forward to the 80s, the harmonic convergence, and I really started working prior to this, over the first 7 years of the 1980s, I'd started working as what we then knew as a psychic or as a clairvoyant, hailed as being very accurate. And so it wasn't surprising that then on August 15, 16, 17, I was invited by a friend who is no longer with us. And the crystal store that he had in Glastonbury is no longer there. It's been morphed by all the other crystal keepers that are there. But that's when I had this extraordinary experience, August the 16th, by meeting the angels of Atlantis. Now that was huge, absolutely huge.
Tell us about that. That's, yeah, I'm sure our viewers would love to hear more about that.
Well, I'd been asked by this friend who just opened this crystal store, would I go down and provide 20-minute, half-hour readings, which apparently I did very well, so they said. So I did this and was exhausted. So during the lunch break, I went to the tour, and this is when I, in the middle of meditation, heard these extraordinary sounds. I opened my eyes, and in front of me were these 12 huge orbs of light. And I heard a voice inside me that I remember from childhood, which I now know is Archangel Michael, saying, we are the angels of Atlantis, and we're going to give you a temple of sound healing called the Alchemy Voice. This is the reenaction of something that you did in Atlantis. And indeed, a number of very powerful lifetimes have you been around the energy of sound in a sacred context, not just in a secular context. And then I experienced a beam of light that moved through me on a diagonal right through my heart. And that was extremely painful, I must say, that it felt as though the whole of my body was quaking and that my cells were separating. So I did faint, but then came round very quickly. The force of Shakti was so huge. And then over a process, I suppose, of about 2 weeks, I was in acute recovery. I mean, I went to bed for 2 weeks and knew that I was well looked after because of the forms that were appearing to me as I moved in and out of trance during those 2 weeks. And friends looked after me, and then I was living in a long-term relationship with someone who just did not understand. But I was surrounded by friends who did understand. So they came and looked after my physical body while I went through this process.
How old were you then, Stewart, when that happened with the Angels of Atlantis?
I was 36, 37, I think.
Because I've noticed this, and I'm sure for people who are very much into astrology, they would be able to pinpoint what this was. But I have seen this pattern, and in the Hebrew system that I work with, which shows people's soul blueprints, there is often this transition that starts taking place between normally the ages of 35 to 42. Some people before, some people afterwards. But I went through, I mean, you said 36, that was the age that I woke up as well to the 6 foot tall star being stood in my bedroom, 36, and then started going through this transition. It seems to happen for quite a few of us, doesn't it, who are destined, if you like, to be on these paths, that this age range is when you start really waking up, like your DNA really starts waking up around this time.
Yes, and astrologically, we know that it's the second great Saturn return, the first being during the end of our 20s, and then the second being at the end of our 30s. But at the same time, it's in co-creation with the upper chakras beginning to open, with the transpersonal chakras beginning to open, meaning the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th chakras. They're very, very high frequency. So we need time to habituate ourselves in planet Earth before those energies can be truly awakened. We have to be really grounded.
Yeah, Absolutely, because many of us are going through these experiences now, aren't we, on our planet, and even more and more and more of us waking up and having these huge upgrades. Often, you know, we've been sharing before we've come online today, but you know, I know both of us and many people who are watching this video will have had these very sort of bizarre experiences that one gets, you know, as you are waking up, and
Well,
you're
we see
very
that we
sensitive.
have a series of skins, not just the epidermis that we know of, which is this, you know, this skin, but there are a series of skins, and they have to be shattered, you see,
Yes.
because most of them are firmly enveloped within this entity that we refer to as ego.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we know that the ego consciousness has become severely distorted over the last 400 years as a result of the development of modern science, the development of the Age of Enlightenment, commercialization, industrialization, and capitalization. So that we see the shattering that needs to take place on a cultural level at the moment as a result of the development of modern science, the development of the Age of Enlightenment, commercialization, industrialization, and capitalization. So that we see the shattering that needs to take place on a cultural level at the moment as a result of the development of modern science.
Okay, hold on, just a little bit of, there we go.
This is unusual.
This is Stuart, we shouldn't expect anything else. The energy,
primary distortions,
the technology,
and so we have to be shattered. And you know, and of course, the difficulty is that those of us that are awoken empathically, we call ourselves sensitives, that the neurology of our being is immensely sensitive. And, you know, I feel that the higher we go, the stronger we become. We develop the attitudinal muscles. One of the crucial ones is all conditions are temporary. So when we quake or when we shatter, we know that all we have to do is flow with the process, because it will come to an end, even though it feels as though the cruciality of it is so acute that we're about to go back into source, or we will be mortally affected for the rest of our days, however many they will be. And so we can bring in these attitudinal muscles. What they do is they provide us with a broadening of the fibers within our neurology. And so it's easier to surf the storm that's happening. Being an indigo, most of the major transitions that I've been through, which I would call initiations, have come about as a result of the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, meaning that I've been taken to the cleaners by the social situations or the professional situations that I've been in, and I'm proven to be incongruent or incoherent with those situations. And all that's happening in chronology is that I'm being given the opportunity to move on. Being a Taurus boy, I'm really earthed in loyalty and steadfastness. So that moves into a shadow complex within the Taurus frame, which I am, of being stubborn. As soon as we move into the positive vibration of it, we move into loyalty. So my loyalty is an issue, or the loyalty of others around me is an issue that always propels me into a new way of being. Fundamentally, as the shattering takes place, it's a question of letting go and yielding or surrendering to the divine power. But that requires, we have to get on our knees. We have to humble ourselves and be prepared to let go of all of the belief systems that we've developed for ourselves, or the desires and dreams that we've developed. And so my constant prayer within the face of that is to the angels, or to the Divine Mother, or to my master, Saint Germain, is teach me how you would wish me think. Teach me how you would wish me feel. Teach me what you would have me do. Teach me what you would have me be. I am yours forever. I surrender myself. And then I go into the space of absolute stillness, because that is the space where we move into unconditional love and we receive. The ego wants to control and act out something. But if we go into the stillness, then something radical and new begins to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad that you have just mentioned Saint Germain and Thoth as well. I know that, as you say, your master. And yes, we have similar links with those beings for sure. Do you feel that they are in your lineage, Stuart? What has been how did you first connect with Thoth and Saint Germain, and do they come through separately?
No, for me, they're one being.
Mm-hmm.
They're one being. It's just that we see the different incarnations. You know, Thoth became Hermes, and he's known as Hermes Trismegistus, so he was thrice born, 3 incarnations. And then Merlin, and then Christopher Columbus, and then Francis Bacon, and then Saint Germain. They're all one and the same being for me. They're just different time capsules, different incarnations. And of course, what's interesting about all of them is that they reach into the firmament of great historic shifting points, just as this one that we're living is an immensely powerful historic shifting point. The fight between the light and the darkness is crucial. And of course, as we know right now, the lungs of the planet are being burned down. The Amazonian rainforest is on fire. So, you know, these remarkable events take place when we're going through crucial shifting points. Mm-hmm. And so is there room or space to be fearful? No way. We're being asked to really hold the center of our pranic cord. And in my language, you know, to hold our note, to hold our sovereignty, and to get on our knees and pray with as much humility as we can, that the holy ones come and bless us and provide reparation or restoration or recalibration of these extraordinary energies. Mm-hmm. I do believe that, you know, we were talking earlier about the Andromedan Council, that the Andromedan Galaxy is closest to us for the first time in 150,000 years. And they have technology that will assist us. Mm-hmm. So if reparation or restoration needs to be made, I don't believe that it can be completely husbanded, so to speak, through terrestrial energy. Mm-hmm. I believe that something magical or supernatural needs to take place.
Yes.
We're dealing, you know, this is the first time that planet Earth has been through this global renaissance, because all the other renaissance that have taken place have been nationhoods. And, you know, they've been literally prescribed to a particular area of the planet. But this is global. And that's why it's so critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Hence why so many of us are having these supernatural experiences.
Yeah.
So many of us. Yeah. There's a question here about the energy that is on our planet at the moment, and, you know, particularly this very, very powerful energetic passageway that we have been traveling through. We've had the eclipses, we had the Lion's Gate, and like, let's just talk about this a little bit, because, you know, many of my clients, I'm sure it's the same, you know, a lot of our audiences are clients reaching out and saying, whoa, these energies are so strong. You know, what is the purpose of the energies of late, these ascension energies? And also people struggling, you know, the sensitives, the empaths, really struggling energetically to, like, just kind of do the regular things that we see other folk doing. Can you talk a little bit about the energy, and also how the empaths can best serve these energies?
Well, the energies that we're receiving and all the varying points of identification are very lukewarm at the moment in relation to what we are going to receive. And these are all energetic awakenings that are taking place because of the co-creation of the Intergalactic Council, knowing full well that the Gaia is stretching her muscles. She's stretching her, Earth Mother is stretching her muscles so that this planet can become a 5th dimensional planet. the angels teach me that many of our brothers and sisters are not ready to move into the fifth dimension. And so the angels teach me that there is the preparation of another planet, which is an exact copy of planet Earth, the other side, on the dark side of the moon. And that when our brothers and sisters who are unaware of the subtlety that we're talking about, when they reincarnate, they will reincarnate there to once more live through their karma. The karma is intense at the moment, and that's why we're seeing this extraordinary bottleneck of souls that are intensely involved in the negativities of what our experience is all about. So the surfing of this time is always going to be acute and become more and more and more acute. The question is, what do we do with it? That whenever we go through the energetic shifts, and of course we know that what we're doing is that our cells are literally recalibrating. So that means that the molecular structure of each cell, of each nucleus, is being expanded with more light. So because we're dense in these physical forms, we're going to be experiencing all sorts of unusual physical phenomenon, that because our bodies are quite vulnerable and fragile, that we become immediately concerned about. And what we need to do is to use the discipline of, I'm just surfing a recalibration. All conditions are temporary on planet Earth. This will pass. But in the meantime, let me just hold on to the furniture. Let me go to bed. Make sure that we have all of our steadfast companions with us, those whom we trust,
yes,
those who we know are not going to freak out because of what we're going through, but are just simply going to be there holding us.
Yeah.
And then the first thing that we need to do after that is go back to practice. We need to meditate. We need to still the neural pathways from the furor or the fury or the ecstasy of what's taking place inside, which feels as though there's a Vesuvian eruption taking place. Or if it's not Vesuvius, the red mist comes in and suddenly it's like, who am I? What is this? Oh my goodness, what's going on? All of these inexplicable phenomena. We just need to go back to practice. And that's when our prayers or affirmations become absolutely quintessential, because we know that our brothers and sisters that preceded us, particularly within the world's great faiths, they know how to deal with the mystical, supernatural, physiological events. I mean, for example, 400 years ago, the first thing that you and I would have done if we began a major recalibration is that we go straight to the monks or straight to the nuns, because they knew what was going on. They knew about the long, dark night of the soul. They knew about spiritual madness, and they wouldn't freak out. They would just simply take us in and hold us, making sure that our bodies were either strapped to those cots or provided with water, or that there was a bucket next to us so that they could, so that we could bleed out or release, evacuate the liquids from our bodies so that we could then go through into the next level. And they would just be there holding us like any great mother would hold us. No drama. Just hold. So our prayers keep us steadfast.
And we're in these modern times now where there's 1,000,001 things to do, and the world's an extremely busy place, and there's Brexit that's happening, and I want to talk to you about Brexit because I know you've got some very fascinating perspectives on that. But yeah, I mean, what can we share from our own experiences? And I'm going to tune in as well because I've been going through a very, very intense initiation transition at the moment energetically. I was sharing before we jumped on this live that I'm used to visitations, had many, many visitations, still have lots of visitations, but I'm having this interesting phenomenon going on with my ceiling at the moment where it's coming to life at nighttime. There's all these sort of sigils, and in fact there was even, let's just get the crazy out, there was Jesus and Mary dancing with each other on my ceiling the other night, which is very interesting, and no acid involved. And then suddenly all of these codes started literally these blocks, these different colors, these different codes just started streaming into me from the ceiling. And there was this energy over my head, over my shoulders, that just lifted up. And I knew it was an upgrade. I got it confirmed a couple of days later, and I'm so grateful that my psyche is in a place where I can take this stuff these days. Because when you're going through these very incredible, very supernatural experiences, and then I had 2 astral projection experiences later that night. And when I was younger, and I know you were very, very energetically sensitive as well growing up, and you're having, experiences, you're sensing energy, things are playing it around you, and you don't know what's going on. I don't know about you, but I mean, it used to terrify me. Stewart, how did you deal?
Well, I knew of the terror, but I found other humans to be more terrifying than what I was seeing, because I was enraptured by awe and wonder. And it was the awe and the wonder that as human gave me the understanding that I was always held by Archangel Michael and by spirit guardians that I saw, whom I couldn't name. But Archangel Michael has been with me from a very, very early age. But I was also very fortunate, because although I was going through the turmoil within, because the world seemed to not particularly understand me, that I was also cast physiologically, I was cast in environments of great beauty. And that was to do with my father's job. So there were, if you like, what we would call social privilege. So I was in buildings that were very old, that were filled with many voices that had been there for centuries and centuries. I mean, the first building that I remember awakening to is a building that in our culture is called a palace, and it's been there since the Tudor period. So we're talking about many, many hundreds of years, and it's filled full of art treasures. So I was very fortunate that I was surrounded by material beauty. That transported me, you see, because we're dealing not just simply with surface energy, but a vibrational counsel that is immensely wise, which is what beauty is. Beauty is an emanation of the divine. Now, in the shadows, I could see the darkness. I could see the demonic, and I knew that they were there, and witnessed very unusual things in the middle of the night. But the light beings were always there with me. My guardian angel, no name, no material consciousness in the form of male, female, Assyrian, Atlantean, or whatever, just this being of light, this beam of light that became orbs. Because for me, the angels were always orbs, and it was much later in life that I read Meister Eckhart and Hildegard von Bingen and Dionysius the Areopagite, these great mystics. And they said that angels were orbs of light. That's what they were seeing. So I felt, at least I'm not crazy. This was before I met the angels of Atlantis. I read these scholars. So I've always been held in the awe and the wonder, even in, when I think of what is the most X-rated situation that I've been in that was really scary. I was asked by an organization here in London if I would operate an exorcism. And the exorcism was to release a poltergeist from a young woman who was sexually immature, but physiologically around 23, 24. So she had socially been inhibited by her parents, who were devout Roman Catholics, and therefore had this burgeoning, this beautiful sexuality that she found really difficult to express. And lo and behold, because she found it really difficult to gain employment, she got a job in a shoe shop, and the delivery boy was this really sexy young man. They fell into conversation, and then the flirtation started. And when her parents went on pilgrimage to Lourdes, the two young ones got together, had a drink at the pub, and then she invited him back to the house for a cup of tea. And of course, the cup of tea led to the making out. But like all young ones, they made out in her parents' bedroom. And before they even moved into the heavy petting, the whole place went crazy. He ran, picking up his trousers or whatever. He ran scared because the closet doors opened, the bed was lifted up, the bedclothes were torn off the bed. I mean, everything went into mayhem. And she had 2 of these intense psychotic experiences. So I was asked, the parish priest couldn't do anything with the spirits. So I was asked to go in, and I went in with all of my tools, a good medievalist, bell, book, and candle.
Oh, yeah.
Really important.
Bell, book, and candle, yeah.
Prayer book or sacred
bell over there. Yeah.
The bell.
I get my bell. Mine's of course got a pentacle on it. So yeah. Nothing wrong with the bell.
And candle. And over the other side of the room here, there's a candle burning, which I always have a candle burning. And anyway, to cut a long story short, the manifestations began as I moved into prayer with her, and the whole of the room became havoc. I mean, literally, chairs were being picked up and thrown against walls. Pictures were flying off the wall. Rugs were being picked up and they were pinned to the ceiling. I mean,
whoa, that's intense.
And I stood and prayed all the way through it. She transmogrified into what she perceived as the devil, as Satan.
Oh, interesting. So
the whole of her upper body became this image of the burning red eyes, the horns.
Whoa.
And I just hold on to all of the training that I've been through, which is muscular. It's sensory. We have to hold on because fear comes up.
Yes.
And so we have to allow fear to literally be sat on while we keep the diligence and the devotion of holding the light.
Yes.
And with that force, and please, angels, I don't necessarily want to be tested in this way again. It was energetically very demanding.
Cancel, clear, delete any resonance of that being in your attractor field.
She, the prayers worked and she transformed. And, this is a number of years ago. And she recovered. Now, she's living in Australia, a very, very happy life, and is one of Australia's leading mediums.
Well, so this is it.
She woke up and released the guilt and the shame and the denial of Roman Catholicism.
Right.
Indoctrination that she'd received as a young woman.
Oh, bless her.
Married with children, a beautiful husband, has 3 beautiful children. We're still very much in contact.
Oh, bless her heart. Yeah, it's it is often the rite of passage. I mean, not as intense as you've just described, but I mean, I've had some serious experiences in my life. I mean, when you first started talking, I was chuckling to myself because it sounded like me at 24, waking up with the huge aliens on the bed and the speaking in tongues and the not being able to go in my house, because it was haunted. And it was true, but so was I. It was called entity attachments. But what I can share is on this pathway that we're on, not all of us experience things in that way. We're all uniquely coded, of course. So it doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. And there doesn't need to be fear attached to that. What it has been for me is a deepening of trust, like you said, not only in its protection, but also in trust of myself, trust in spirit, trust in the divine, trust in source. And it's the illusions that we're stepping through, because this stuff on one level, yes, it's playing out, but on another level, it's this beautiful flowering, this beautiful rite of passage that turns you into, in your case, the lady is the medium, you being a psychic and, you know, incredible master that you are, and me going through my transition, my rite of passage to do what I do in the world, you know, part of which, by the way, is entity release work, funnily enough. So I think for anybody who is watching this, who, you know, who is having these very strange experiences, sometimes could feel frightening experiences, what I would like to share is that it will make sense, like, keep going, like, hold on, you know, it will make sense.
Go back to where you were, because you started to identify the technology that holds us in sanity when we feel we're going insane. It holds us in the still point that we are when there's havoc on the outside. You know, it's a sacred warrior's path. And when I speak thus, I speak not as a, you know, professional soldier, but as a sacred warrior, as a priest warrior, meaning that we're drawn to, you know, warriors don't sit at home, they go to battle. So we find a technology, and you started to talk about trust.
Yeah, trust.
You see, trust is a membrane. It's an attitudinal muscle that we know is shattered when a relationship betrays us and says it isn't what we believed it was. And then our hearts shatter, and we have to bring our hearts back together again. So we realize that through untrust, we learn trust. And I believe that there are two other degrees: belief, faith, and trust. And they're the three concomitants of love. That when we love, we trust. When we love, we believe. When we love, we have faith.
Yeah.
And that it's the still point. So we must practice our meditation. We must go into nature, even in the middle of a great storm, and stand next to the tallest oak or the tallest tree that we can feel while the winds whip around us. You know, I've done this in hurricanes. One of the most extraordinary experiences was one of the other lineages that I didn't mention was when I was called to Sai Baba. So I've seen a lot of magic in the East. Yes. And there was one particular, which has come into my consciousness, is one particular story which I'd love to share with you. And this was watching a living saint, a bodhisattva. This was the sister of Sai Baba, who was a great guru in India, who was known as the Cosmic Christ. And I was in Bali with her and 25 other people. And when we were there, a typhoon came up. So there we are in a long hut trying to eat dinner with her at the head of the table, and the palm trees are actually at 90 degrees. I mean, everything was horizontal, and the noise was just excruciating. So we could hardly hear each other speak, but we were trying to produce normalcy by continuing to eat. And everybody's looking at Amma, because Amma means great mother, and suddenly she went, enough, banged the table, walked out of the long hut. Her body was like this, but the force of the wind, stood at the edge of the water and went, and the whole thing stopped.
Wow. Wow.
That's how powerful they are, right?
Yes.
The whole thing stopped. So wow. I've seen great magic, but you see, within her was this immense stillness. And I mention that, of course, because, you know, we're saying that one of the largest kinetic vibrations that's in havoc, other than the psychic, is the physical hurricane. And right at the center of it is absolute stillness. So, you know, I believe that this is the period that we're in is not the survival of the fittest. I was saying that 35 years ago. This is the survival of the wisest. We have to get still.
Survival.
And Marianne is saying this on her platform.
Oh, yes.
I mean, please watch what she's saying, because she's crystallizing extraordinary psychic or spiritual, attitudinal technology into the transmissions that she's giving about the politics of love. She's able to stand astride like this beautiful female colossus that she is. She has a mental body which is immensely expanded, and so it's fed by her heart and it's fed by her physiology, and she's able to, like a great magician, like a great sorceress, she's able to hold all of these lines of force and stay completely still in a situation that is ostensibly trying to not just deny her, but destroy her. Because what she's presenting rather, is the possibility of a key into the promised land. And people are denying it because it's frightening to move out of the paradigm awarenesses that they have into the possibility of, you mean my ego is not the most important thing in my existence?
Well, you of course have I mean, you've had a fascinating life in this incarnation, and yeah, I mean, you have been the advisor and the trusted one to some of the biggest names, the greatest leaders that this world is seeing in this era. Marianne Williamson being one of them, Diana, Prince of Wales, being another. And I know that you are currently writing a book, is that right? Or have written a book?
It's written, so we're really preparing it for publication. January the 10th, 2020, astrologically prescribed. It's when Diana's astrology and my astrology create this amazing co-creative marriage of possibilities in relation to the way that we can move through 3 dimensions, 4th into 5th dimensionality. She's working with us as an angel of vast luminosity. I am so moved and honored by her presence.
Well, you were an advisor, weren't you? I mean, you had an incredible dynamic, and
yeah, we were very close for 2 years. The last 2 years of her life, you know. So it was very extraordinary when I met the possibility of the fact that she was dead. I shall never forget the sound that came out of me. It was quite extraordinary. Pure atavism, you know, totally instinctive scream that came out of me, the horror. And I know that scream also provided a jet stream for her because of the way that we were connected through sound, so that she could draw many of the elements that are still scattered from her energy within the consciousness of Earth. And one of the triumphs of the book is to dispel the lamentation. When she passed, her soul partially fractured. And as a result of this, the energy splintered and scattered into certain epicenters around planet Earth to help facilitate the Shakti awakening in approximately the population of the planet then was 5.9 billion, and she spoke to in excess of 3 billion people were affected by her energy. And now all of those trace elements are being once more exhumed so that they can go back into this extraordinary fontal of energy that she passed through at the Pont de Almar, which is a very, very ancient epicenter for the passing of unique souls on our planet. It's called the Bridge of Souls, and it has a history and a lineage that goes all the way back to the Holy Grail. I mean, it's really that particular epicenter. So yeah, she's coming through to help the arousal of the divine feminine, and all of the exercises that we created together, that I created for her, and that she was very willing to execute, lifted her into the radiance of the way that she was as human. We knew that the passing was her passing was acutely present. We just didn't know the circumstances. Lifted her into the radiance of the way that she was as human. We knew that the
very strange. Very strange.
It is. Very disconcerting.
Yeah. So the echo. So we're hearing you multidimensionally, Stewart.
Yeah, it's and and just over the last few days, she's been with me very acutely. So there's a tremendous amount of shifting currency of energy. It's very odd. Anyway, we'll leave that where it is. Yes, I mean, as far as darling Diana, I've been very honored. I've been brought into the presence of some very remarkable human beings, and particularly the ladies, particularly the women. And I feel it's something to do with again, to use the word, the refraction of my own particular energies, the way that I have developed this very strong masculine force that it enables me to move forward. It's my will that enables me to move forward in the world, even in very difficult situations. You see, again, in those difficult situations, I remember feeling it when I was very, very young. A stillness drops into me. I don't work at that, it drops in. I've worked on the stillness by relaxing and moving into that inchoate way of being completely at one with self and therefore with the divine. But it's always been, as a mechanism, it's always been there. I believe that that's a definition of something that we have worked on for generation after generation, for incarnation after incarnation, as soul technologists, because we know that the divine lives in complete stillness.
Absolutely. The presence, the divine presence, the stillness. Yeah. The void. Yeah. I would love to, very strange, this technology. I apologize to the viewers for the
there's an undercurrent of vibrational force that comes through on it, which I was just getting out of the way because it was trying to interfere with our consciousness, and I won't allow it, because what we share is very high octane. So there are many, many different vibrational meanings in the words that are chosen and the exchanges of information.
Very much so.
But if we ground what we're talking about in the unusual nature of the phenomenon that we witnessed and continue to witness, the stillness, so that we can take ourselves back to that trust and that belief and that faith, are absolutely crucial.
Yes.
So if we're not saying prayers to do with belief, prayers to do with trust, prayers to do with faith, so that we evoke, because they're obviously sonic codes, the way that we use belief and faith and trust. Those words are sonic codes. That if we can keep using the words, we open up the membrane that they bring us to, that allows a consistency to take place. Because that's really what we're looking for. When we're in chaos, we're looking for the flow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When we're feeling insecure, we're looking for the secure, which of course means self-cure. It's just that word has been distorted by the patriarchy, and we've been taught that it's something on the outside of us. It's not. That's a complete illusion. It's something on the inside. But of course, as we as mortals develop the security on the inside, it means that we are no longer in obeisance to that energy on the outside of us that is wanting to control us. Now what we're doing, of course, is drawing all of those energies back into us. And so most of us are going through trying circumstances where the patriarchy, which as we know is dissolving, is becoming very angry with us. I mean, for example, the number of people that are having financial meltdown and can't pay their tax bills, and so Big Brother steps in and shakes its fist at these dear ones and disallows them from being able to find practical means of paying off the tax debt over a period of time, or whatever the situation is. We have to be prepared for all of that. It's spectral.
Yeah. We just have a couple of minutes left now. What I would love to do is, well, there is magic when you and I get together, Stewart. There's always magic. And last time there were so many of my audience that were reaching out and saying, how can we connect with Stewart? How can we learn more about his work? How can we work with him? Would you mind just sharing a few portals, you know, magical things, magical portals, beautiful portals, ways in which this audience can connect with you and go on a further journey?
Well, the first portal is www.theangelsofatlantis.com. You can go to www.stewartpearce.com, but everybody would just be dismayed there because it's a very corporate site. It's the other hat that I wear that stops some of the people who are in positions of world management from getting scared about the fact that I'm a mystic. So the more over the last 10 years, the more that I've come out of the closet about, yes, I'm a mystic, the more people have dropped away. And that's fine. That's part of the, that's part of the operation. And so I find ways of being able to be like an acrobat about the ways that I earn money to substantiate the nature of existence that I want to live on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looked after in terms of a roof over my head and clothes on my back and food in my belly.
Mm-hmm.
So www.theangelsofatlantis.com. And then, of course, there are the other orifices, so to speak, Facebook, Stewart Pearce, and Instagram, Stewart Pearce, The Voice, and Twitter, Stewart Pearce. There are all of these channels I feed regularly and have my members of my team placing wonderful memes. But yes, everything's on really the www.theangelsofatlantis.com. And gradually throughout the fall, as my American friends would say, there will be the emergence of DianaTheVoiceOfChange.com.
So, and I know that you have, so we get to hang out a little bit because we're not geographically a million miles away, which is lovely. And I won't be able to attend because there is something else going, but I know you've got a couple of workshops coming up in London. There's one September the 9th that one's in Cheltenham, isn't it?
Yes, I don't think it's the 9th. I think it's let me just check the date. I think it's is it the 9th? 7th, September the 7th in Isborne. It's the easiest thing to do is to go to the Isborne Centre's website. My web technician, my web wizard is away on holiday at the moment, and he hasn't been well, so I can't disturb him. And there are posts pending to be placed on the website, but they'll be up over the next couple of days. There's a lot going on. All of it will be found on the website.
Are you speaking there? You obviously are speaking, but what is the?
It's a workshop. It's a day's workshop called The Voice of Love. The Voice of Love is the voice of change. So it's looking into how we can bring reparation or recalibration or restoration to all the many changes that are taking place in our lives because change is constant. The patriarchy doesn't want us to believe in change. They want us to believe in permanency. But of course, what we're recognizing is that permanency is an illusion. It doesn't exist. And what does is the wisdom of uncertainty that is constantly changing. Mm-hmm. So it's about looking into the whole substance of how do we serve change and remain the constant beings that we are. That if we're fearful, if we're anxious, if the shit hits the fan and physiological breakdowns take place or financial breakdowns take place or employment breakdowns take place, of how do we negotiate our way through? How do we navigate our way through these difficult straits? And of course, going back to the essential precepts of our peoples, because whatever happens when we look into all civilizations, that they all rise and they fall. So ours is risen and now it's falling. And of course, there's flotsam and jetsam everywhere. So where do we go? There are keys or precepts, virtues, graces that we humans have used for time immemorial, that the warrior class, like the Templars, for example, in the last great Renaissance, held on to so that we can remain constant. Mm. The first one, of course, is love is all there is.
Mm. And on that note, I would like to thank everybody for tuning into this interview live with us today. Thank you so much for your presence in our lives. Uriel?
This card has just fallen out of the oracle. The Archangel Uriel is blessing us with abundance. Archangel Uriel is the great companion.
We receive. Thank you, Uriel. Thank you, Stewart Pearce. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in live. Thank you to everybody who's watching this on the replay. I hope that you received some enlightenment, some illumination, that your spirits were lifted hearing us talk today. And if nothing else, I'm sure you'll agree, it was just great to hear Stewart say the immortal words, it had shit in it. When the shit hits the fan, that was one of my favorite moments of our I just love I'm looking at all the Facebook comments and everybody's saying how much they love your voice. And I think the only thing that we're left to do now is to ring us out. Stuart, what do you think?
I quite agree.
Thank you so much, everybody. See you again on Ascension Talk with Ariella. Much, much love.
Bless you.